Good afternoon, dear friends. We begin our discussion, which is called "Is There Life in the Public Service?" It is with great pleasure that I would like to introduce our speakers: Elena Mukhtiyarova, Deputy Minister of Labor and Social Protection of the Russian Federation; Oleg, Kachanov, Deputy Minister of Digital Development, Communications and Mass Media; Nikolay Viktorovich Lubimov, Governor of the Ryazan region; and Andrei, Soroko, Deputy Director of the National Research Center Kurchatov Institute. Good afternoon. So here is the subject we discussed today, on different programs, the personnel reserve, different programs. We have very good listeners. When you enter a room, a conference room, and you look into their eyes, they do not remind us of any heroes from the TV serials. They are officials, bureaucrats. It is responsibility that we see in their eyes for everyone and for everything. Sometimes I want to come up and hug them and to keep them in my hands. So during the coffee breaks, we discuss, is there life in the public service, in the for the civil servants? Sometimes they don't see their children for several days on end. But why do these people join this public service? Is there life there? And what is they supposed to do there? So my first question to Elena Vyacheslavorovna: how many people you think work in our civil service? Well, the civil service is probably one of the global employers on the labor market. About 1 million of civil servants in the Russian Federation. In the meantime, if you look at the structure of this 1 million employees, about half of them, 450,000, are federal civil servants. But we have to emphasize here that it's mainly people who work in territorial authority bodies, those who work with control and supervision bodies, those who provide public services, interacting with our citizens. About 300,000, these are civil servants in the constituent subjects of the Russian Federation, and about 200,000 account for municipal servants. So all of this creates a kind of uniform legal requirement, legal framework. So if we try to paint a portrait of a civil servant, is first of all, it will have a female face, because they're mostly women who work there. But if we look at the federal level and you look at the territorial borders, these are about 73% of women accounting for civil service. Also, the age, the average age is about 39 years old. But when we analyze the average age on the Russian labor market in general, it's 42 years old. So the civil service is comparatively younger in terms of composition, age composition. But it's really a highly important area for us, is to attract more younger people in the civil service. So that's quite important, because as a major employer for civil service, they are at the peak of this debate, The public service today, what is a public service? Can you give me 3 definitions? Verbs, adjectives, or nouns? Well, it will be kind of a probably biased, subjective evaluation. It's like a hashtag that you want to hear from me. First of all, responsibility. Number 2, team. And number 3, service. I agree, social responsibility, service, serving. So understanding that you serve to someone that will be for the benefit of your country. And number three, new possibilities, new opportunities, because a person entering a public service gets a lot of different opportunities in terms of education, career, the market penetration, and so on and so forth. So that's probably the number three is as important as the first two. Your three hashtag, Nikolay Vladimirovich, first of all, professionalism, skills. Number two is the feedback, reaction, and number three is also service, because unprofessional, it's really the idea that you serve, you provide service to people. So providing services, if you do not react to people's demands, to people's inquiries, if you don't care whether you behave yourself in a relevant way, what exactly you have done for the people, you won't be able to work in the civil service. And also, the public service, it attracts people not because it's stability, but many people are attracted because they want to make a career, indeed. Something that will make you more noticeable as you climb up the career ladder, so to say, and you will be able to do this job with more responsibility and to getting more recognition from people, indeed. So we'll talk about social recognition. Your three hashtags, Andrei Vladimirovich: service, professionalism, stability. Now my question is to the Ministry of Digital Development and Mass Communications. We are extremely grateful to you for digital transformation that you are dealing with, but every medal, every coin has a flip side. No more personal life. When your boss can send you in a messenger that you have to do something, and you are you are requested to do something, it's really hard life. For people who are in the public service, it's like a damnation, it's a scourge, because you no longer have your own life. So how we can go through Scylla and Charybda using only the benefits of digital transformation and preserving your personal space at the same time. Is it possible for a civil servant? As digital transformation enters our personal lives, it's not a phenomenon that's only relevant to civil service. Talking about businesses, it's the same. Any boss in business can send a message to his employee any time of the day. But honestly, Nikolay Vladimirovich, do you write such messages to your subordinates? They are probably watching this broadcast right now. Yes, of course, it happens, because that's the kind of work we have to perform. So you understand that you have to, you penetrate, you interfere in their personal space. Yes, I understand, but we can't do anything about this because we have chosen this path, we have chosen this work. So let me carry on then. I'm not saying that it's only about working activities, but it's relevant to any kind of activities. For hypothetically, you can send something, you can write something at 2 a.m. at night. Well, I don't do this, but hypothetically, it is possible. And of course, it transforms our lives. This is a fact. We have to accept this, because that's the way the life is construed, is configured today. But of course, the working process should be organized in such a manner so that you do not have the need to write messages at 2 a.m. to your employees. But sometimes, non-standard urgent situations may occur, so we believe that it is admissible in certain points, in certain moments. So we have to act as a single team that is supposed to ensure the achievement of a common goal, of some output. And that's when people allow this interference in their personal lives, because the end result is at the end. So we need one victory, and we are not afraid to pay high price, but it's a difficult price. So when you talk with people who have never worked in the civil service, they say, what is a bureaucrat? There are several definitions. They say, oh, wow, yeah, well, actually it fits with the portraits described by singer Semyon Slepakov. I asked him once, Semyon, you have a lot of friends, bureaucrats in the civil service. You see that they are not like that. Why do you compose such songs about poor bureaucrats, you know? And he said, if you're going to write songs about good bureaucrats, nobody's going to listen to my songs. So it's a sad reality, you know. We're really upset about this because people are ready to answer this at any day of the times. I believe that, you know, sympathy and social service are their hashtags, but they have a lot of limitations. There's a high degree of responsibility that they have to bear. In the meantime, everybody thinks that they are like heroes of some TV serials. You remember when it's news about some government official, it's a kind of a negative connotation, implication in that. So really sad. We're really sad about this. People who join the civil service, what exactly they get, taking into account the opinion, social opinion. So there's this cultural layer, I mean the mass popular culture. Well, and also bearing in mind that they have this workload, they have to go to bed with their telephones in hand, and also the limitations that they incur. But what is the result? What do they get? So that's the question I want to ask Andrei Viktorovich. Well, you see, I believe it's what it is important to say in this context that the first the right to serve your motherland. When you join the civil service, number two is the possibility to get useful experience, and number three, this is a possibility of interaction, of interacting with people, networking with people who are professionally or on a high level. So it's like tutorship. And another important point I wanted to mention is the stability as you enjoy in the civil service. The audience in our personnel reserve ask quite often what kind of incentives you have, or what kind of counter incentives you might experience here. So let me tell you briefly what they say about the motivation, understanding why you do this work. It's really important. The bonus you get in the end of the year, which you may not receive, but nevertheless. What are the counter incentives? is sometimes the bonus does not depend on the quality of your work, but rather on the payroll fund. Was the counter motivation is the formalism of routine bureaucratic processes where you don't get any feedback, professional burning out. Emotional burning out in the civil service is another important issue. Elena Vyacheslavorovna, for you personally and according to your observations, what are the motivations and counter motivations in this? I mean, what can you do against these counter motivation factors? Let me start with two figures first. I think it is highly important. When we analyze the personnel turnover, we understand that it's higher than the standard figures that we use in evaluating our personnel work. About 7% is quite a typical figure. If you look at the civil service, we understand that in the central administration, head administration is higher than 13%. In territorial borders, about 10%. And in fact, there's a high degree of rotation and turnover in the constituent subjects, which is roughly about 17%. So as we understand these, we understand that this kind of civil service is the uniform single legal mechanism. Each authority has its own corporate culture. So I think probably it's quite important to see whether the top officials are interested in providing such incentives and motivation for its employees through bonuses or education programs.
But also you can use motivation some non-classical instruments. For example, in our ministry, a very important element is the team building. We have some sports events which do not cost a lot, but they help to build a real team. And as I said before, we pay special attention to the young workers who join us, and they participate in all the processes of our ministry. And it's very important to have close communications between the employees of the ministry and their superiors of high level. It's important from the point of view of respect, of mutual communication. And I also would like to comment briefly on the following issue. From the January 1st of 2022, we work under the decree of President and under the new amended federal law, which have changed the structure of payroll that we receive. We've changed the structure, and we have about 70%. About 70% of what we pay to the public servants will be the guaranteed part, and the about 30% will be bonuses. Before, it was vice versa, and it helps to attract younger young people, young specialists, because before they were receiving a very small salary guaranteed by the state, and it's a very important step. And it's very important for us to have a clear, transparent system of KPIs for the 30% that we see as a bonus. And in my honest opinion, it's a very important step from the point of view of corporate culture of each body. And I think that each body has to develop their own motivating system. And from our point of view, from the regulator point of view, we have to think about some standards for those motivation events, and we're working on it right now. Nikolay, I would like to ask you, as a manager with a huge practical experience, and I am that you think about constantly how can I have my team in the best condition, how to defend my specialists, how to give them all they need for work. So, what do you think? What is more important, the spirit or the material part? When it comes to the public service, I believe that the non-material stimuli is more important than the material one. If we see the lower part of the state organizations, they do not earn a lot there. They come to us looking for certain stability for future, and also those who are ambitious, they look for career growth and they need the social lift. So they are looking for special relationships between them and their superiors, and I think that this personal relation is very important when you communicate with your employees of the lower level. In the middle level, they are just trying to work where there are many of them, and this happens when they don't have that initial enthusiasm. So we as managers have to work on, we have to give them new goals, we have to give them new ambitions, and we need the do their work with high quality, and they apply creative approach. And here we need to combine the material and non-material stimuli. So I believe with this new system of payrolls, we will attract more young specialists, and we will look for talented people, and we will motivate them from the initial point of their work. You want them to be creative. If you want them to be creative, you have to pay them because they need to be confident. And it's very difficult to maintain them this condition. In Ministry of Digital Technologies, you need the creativity at each step. How do you achieve it? In my honest opinion, for a strong team, you need a strong leader. If there is a strong leader, he will build a strong team. And you don't need any special stimulation for them. If there is a leader, he will find the goals everybody need and the team will help him to achieve it. I will achieve it with them, and it will bring a great satisfaction. If they cannot achieve those goals, there will be no satisfaction, and the team won't function. And it has to do with public service, with private business, with all the fields and all the areas. You know that there is a famous United States entrepreneur who's building spaceships right now, and he doesn't pay a lot, but he has great goals, and people is interested in those goals, and they work with him, and we see the same thing in tax agency, in our ministry. We see that people who work with us, they want to achieve the same results that we do. Of course, we have to pay them something. They have to feel happy. I think that we should find the balance between the what we can pay and what do they want. But they always have to think about the work they are doing. They always have to think about the goals that we propose them. And this work, when people work together, that help a lot to unite people. And I would like to repeat that when there is a team, when people think about their work, even when they unite after work to have a beer, they continue speaking about their objectives, about what's happening at their work, and it means that they are interested. It's like a job and a hobby for them, and they're in the right place and in the right time. Because when they say that I don't want to work, I want to go to sauna and to have a beer, that means that they are doing the work that they dislike. Another question: do we need a KPI for public servants, or do you believe them harmful? I worked in Federal Tax Service, and I had a case which impressed me a lot. One colleague of us from the Federal Tax Service, he was paying the debts of taxpayers. And why? Because he wanted to have a high KPI. And his colleagues, they snitched on him, and it was a real pity, and I understand why he did it. Probably it wasn't only the KPI issue, but anyhow. What is more important, the KPI, which can become the main leading light for the function for the public servants, or something else? I believe that KPI in public service is very different from KPI in business. Unfortunately, those KPIs, they were brought from private sector, and they has to do with some things which we don't have in public service. For us, it's very important to accomplish the order of president, of minister, of government. And when we speak about governors, each governor has some KPIs which are defended each year, and I think that we need also KPIs for federal ministers, and we need them since long ago, and I believe that in actual conditions we have to think about it. But speaking about simple worker, for them the main KPI is the time that they spent on accomplishing the order of the president of the government, of their superior, of the authorities. Well, I disagree with you. I believe that we have to work on KPI system adapted for the level of public servants, and it should depend on the kind of work he is performing. And it should be an individual thing, but it's very important because it helps to all the public servants to understand why he receives bonus or he doesn't receive bonus. So for the optimum functioning, it's very important. For example, if it's a ministry, we understand that the minister established some tasks, and these tasks they sometimes receive them from the government. But within the ministry, we need a system which is clear and transparent, and allows you to understand where do your salary come from. And this year we have a new project on client-oriented service, and within this framework we have a specialized segment, the so-called internal client. And internal client for us is a public servant. So we are working closely with our colleagues from the Ministry of Digitalization, and we have great plans on developing a new HR system for the public service, digitalizing all the things that can be digitalized in order to make easier his work and give him more time for other things like search of new personnel, work on KPIs, and it will help to find new kind of employees for the public service. And on the next step, we will work on the this concept of client-oriented service in all the all the public service, and we think that it should become a part of education of all the public servants. Well, it's a very important topic, client-oriented service. We believe that everybody needs a good service, high-quality service, but we understand that we cannot offer an ideal service if the internal client isn't satisfied. And also, it's proven that there is material service and non-material service. When it comes to material service, it has to do with the salary, the quality of the working place, water and cooler, coffee machine. But this is not what determines the quality of the final quality of the service, and I mean the environment, is the happiness, is the structure of communications. If it's whether you can ask to your superior a question without feeling I'm stupid. So if there is a feeling of a team, so how do you believe? What do you need to do to have this good, healthy environment in all the public service bodies? This non-material element of service, which turns out to be the most important. I would like to ask first Nikolay and then all our colleagues. Well, uh, uh, the first place to give this comfortable feeling to all public servants uh, uh, we speak about public service uh, uh, you need to explain him in detail what does he have to do and give him an algorithm to follow. So you don't need to ask him to be creative where you don't need this.
That's the first thing. He's supposed to have a basis for his work, including digital assistance, so he could be relieved of this using the digital assistance. But as regards the rest, I mean, interacting with people, that much depends here on how this person has been recruited and educated, because younger people come graduate from the institute having certain knowledge, but he needs help anyway. He needs some assistance so that a person could achieve more comfortable conditions in his work. So right now we are dealing with the construction of a corporate training center. Well, of course, we are going to introduce KPI, not for everyone, of course. Number two is training, not just lectures that people can listen to. It's precisely training with the team, with the educational team, with some more advanced elements. Like targeted orientation. So because a person in the process of corporate learning, corporate process, he must be aware of these goals that he is supposed to achieve. So the material incentives in such endeavor is also has to be most active. So a manager is capable of seeing how to improve the conditions and how to provide incentives for a certain employee. And the last thing I wanted to say is that a person will feel would tend to feel very unhappy if there is a kind of imbalances, if there is a discrepancy between what he does in his civil service and the reality. So if you do not have this calling to serve people, would be better if you work in a different place. Now, Andrei Viktorovich, your take on that? Well, it's really a systemic question. Mentioned this problem, and it's highly important in these conditions. If such a decision is made, I think we will probably radically change the attitude towards the civil service and the situation within the civil service itself. So I believe that we should bring it to a system somehow, especially regarding the personnel recruitment. Selection of people, we must have uniform approaches and principles underlying this. In this case, we can probably pursue kind of a uniform policy in the central bodies of power. So we need to have this uniform recruitment center, personnel centers. And acting through these centers, we can pursue a kind of a uniform policy. So that will radically change the situation, taking into account the innovations in the public management. Oleg, as I said earlier, corporate culture does not equal corporate policies. Culture is what is actually implemented. The corporate culture may include the following. For example, the deadlines. If you fail to meet a deadline, it's kind of a, it's not good. So that depends on the corporate culture that is supposed to be established and depends on the level of the managers. So this culture may be attractive or not very attractive. If it's attractive, it means that people will be attracted as well. And as an example, we've had a kind of a challenge this year. We used to have just 300 employees in our ministry, but here we have increased the number of people because we recruited some juniors. Well, of course, the salary is very low, but they're young people, so they it's just a way to demonstrate what they can do, show some state service, And we've recruited 230 people, but you offered to them the best sunsets in Moscow, because we told them you won't be able to leave your workplace before the sunset. So it's between 12th and 40th floor that our ministry occupies, and of course, these people were aimed at achieving the actual result. What was really valuable, and that's been a kind of a good incentive for everyone, is striving to bring in real values. So if it's about real values, the culture becomes much more attractive. But of course, in any case, there's a problem of burning out, because this culture implies work from 9 to 5, so to say. But then it's quite beautiful anyway. Yeah, of course it's beautiful. I would subscribe to what colleagues have said, and it's very relevant to mention this word culture, because it's a different degree of maturity. And the higher is the level of culture in the civil service, the better for everyone, both for internal and external clients. Another important point that we've heard here is the need for standards and rules. I do hope that these standards and rules will, we would be able to present for public debate. We have only 1 minute left. We are running out of time, so I will try to ask another question. So we have determined the hashtags of the civil service in the future. 3 hashtags, please, Elena. Well, public service will remain under any circumstances. What Oleg said about culture is also one of the hashtags of the future, and client-centered. We have to geared to clients' needs. Culture, clients' orientation, and efficacy. Nikolay Petrovich's service ability, serving high Number 2, creativity. And number 3, timeliness, on a timely basis. I would subscribe to my previous opinion. The future is with service, professionalism, and stability. Thank you very much. We have discussed, is there life in the public service? And it's up to you to make conclusions.